All right. Well, Emma, welcome to the Farm Traveler podcast. How are you doing?
Good, Trevor. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to have you on. You're a traveler, you're a speaker, you know so much about beef. But before we get into all that, I really wanted to talk to you. You just had some really big travels over in Europe looking at beef and everything. So, how was it?
I did. It was incredibly eye-opening. We talk a lot about what the EU is doing, and honestly, on social media, we hear, or at least I personally see my comment section, this incredible wave of, oh well, this comparison, if you will, between the United States and European agriculture. And I said, you know what? Okay, fine. I will go to Europe and we will check it out firsthand. And so it was incredibly eye-opening. Learned a lot, gained a lot of connections out there, and I definitely look forward to going back.
That's awesome. So, where all did you go? I know you went to Edinburgh, right? And you went to a bunch of other places.
Yeah, so we did about 3.5 weeks worth of traveling. This was 100% a Double E Ranch advocacy trip. There was a little bit of tourism scattered in, just with weather delays, my gain, right? Spent a week in Ireland, or 8 days. Half of that was in Southern Ireland, half of that was in Northern Ireland. For those who don't know, those are the same island, but distinctively two different government processes. One is governed by the EU, the other one falls under the UK. Then I went into the UK, spent about 2.5, 3 days in Scotland, and then the rest of the time was in England, and then spent a week out in the Netherlands. Oh, and then I finally came home. Brought a little sniffle back with me, but that's okay.
Was super fun. What were some of the biggest takeaways you learned, especially on like the EU side of it, when it comes to beef and how they do things?
Yeah, so what viewers may not really understand is that the European Union is very strict. So in the UK, for example, fell out of the European Union mandates, especially when it came to agriculture. And there was a lot of reasons for that, a lot of political reasons for that. But one of the things that I noticed that even though a country like the UK is not technically under the EU policy, they still use the EU agriculture standards as their bare minimum because that's their only exporting location and region. The EU is incredibly climate focused and is incredibly overregulated to the point where even though these countries have a large capacity potential to be more sustainable in their food production, I don't think that they'll ever be able to reach those targets and those opportunities, mainly because of governmental overreach. And when I say governmental overreach, there are seasons that producers cannot spread manure and fertilize their fields. They I have drones that will fly up over your farms and will count the number of head you have. And if it doesn't match what you have reported to the government, you get fined. If you have a death of an animal, you have to report it and then pay someone from the government to dispose of that carcass for you. So a lot of these regulations were claiming that it was sustainability, environmental safety, but in reality, it almost seems like it's the exact opposite. Now, what people have to remind themselves in the United States is that the average farm size in all of those countries are significantly smaller than here in the United States. Here in the United States, we deal with thousands of acres, thousands of head of cattle, depending on what part of the country you're in. Over there, your average farm size in Ireland beef cattle numbers is 40 head. In the UK, it's like 20 head. In the Netherlands, about the same. A quote unquote large dairy over there would be anything over 200 head. Your average is about 75. So we're talking about a much smaller geographical region and a much smaller operation size. So when you have a smaller location, smaller operations, smaller amount of producers, you do have an opportunity to implement some of these more strict traceability regiments that the government puts in place. If we try to have some of those traceability requirements here in the United States, I don't think that it would A, work out at all coming out of the gate. B, we would have a massive transitional period. And really, I don't feel that it's really necessary because even with their traceability laws over there, and what people may not understand is that every animal gets an electronic ID. So every animal gets it, especially beef animal, gets their own
Okay.
passport. And that animal has the amount of times it gets sold, where it gets sold to, how much it gets sold for, any kind of medical records, and you have to have that passport in order to process that animal. Now, for a consumer, it sounds nice, right? Like, oh, I know where it went, I know who owned it, I know where it came from. But in the reality of it, consumers, and we've tested it here in the United States at the retail chain, consumers don't care about that massive amount of information. They just want to know if they ask the retailer a question, the retailer will be able to answer. We here in the United States are incredibly lucky to not only have a sustainable food product, a safe food product, but also a quality meat product, especially when you're talking about beef here in the United States. So I know I'm talking a
That
lot. So I will let you, I don't know what kind of questions more you want to dive into, whatever direction you want to take this. I will say that the beef quality, I consider the United States to be absolutely superior. In fact, most of the meat processors that I went to at the retail chain said that the number one demanded beef product is US beef. The number one most expensive product is US beef, and they sell out. So I think that says a lot for us.
Oh, no, totally. So what do you think as a producer, like what do you think kind of drives that quality difference between EU beef and American beef? I know there's a lot of things in play, but what do you think are the main driving factors with that?
Yeah, well, if you think about amount of just, and I'm to preface, I'm out here in the panhandle of Texas, and we do not get a significant amount of rainfall. Just looking at the quality of forage of over there at every country that I visited versus here, and even the United States, East Texas can be significantly different than West Texas. Virginia is going to be significantly different than Washington. And so when we're looking at our feed programs, especially at the feed yard, we have availability of being able to grow certain crops that other countries cannot. A lot of the feedstuffs that these countries do use at the feed bunk has to be imported from other countries. So already we're seeing a uptick in cost for them in order to feed their cattle out as efficiently as we do here in the United States. We have corn, we have soybean meal, we've got cottonseed hulls, we have distillers, gluten. We have all these resources cheaply available to us versus over there they have to import. Now, what do they thrive in? Grass. So, but when we're looking at an intake for a beef animal, it takes longer for a beef animal to hit the same market weight if they are solely on grass versus if they are on a mixed ration, which is why at the feed yards in the States, they are a massive roughage type of forage in their ration, but there's also some energy and a better TDN nutritional program that we have here in the United States. So part of it is location, part of it is resources, and honestly, genetics. So over there, a lot of animals that I saw specifically in the Netherlands were double-muscled animals. Double-muscled breeds are notorious for being leaner. Now that is a higher demand over there is for a leaner beef. And in fact, in the Netherlands, it actually gets discounted if it has too much intramuscular fat, which is backwards
That is,
than
that's the
here in the
opposite of
United
here.
States. Yeah, so and we also have a better grading system. So if an animal has a certain level of intramuscular fat and a certain ribeye area and all these other parameters, it gets graded as it should. There is a consistent scale of prime, choice, select, and then of course your canners, which you don't really see at the retail counter. But over there, there's no difference of a grading system. I pulled 4 different steaks out, and I am more than happy to send you the picture. 4 different steaks out. They were lined up back to back like you would see soup on a shelf versus here in the United States, it's kind of splayed out for a consumer to visualize. Completely different grades, every single one of them. And that causes a chain reaction. You have a different eating experience, you have a different cooking experience, and you have a different consistency. So when I go to a retail counter in England, I cannot guarantee that the same steak I pick up is going to be the same quality steak that you pick up. Not in terms of health, not in terms of any kind of nutritional value, but in terms of marbling and that flavor and especially tenderness. Which is why historically, especially in the UK, they're pretty well known for quote unquote boiling everything, is because there's not enough intramuscular fat for them to really have a tenderized cut and eating experience. So here in the United States, we differentiate that for consumers and we price that accordingly. In Europe, not so much. In Ireland and the UK, there's no price discrepancy, and it's just whatever cut it is, that's what you get. In the Netherlands, they actually discount that cut if they think that it has too much intermuscular fat. But here's the wild thing: here in the United States, we have this wonderful department called the USDA that
Hmm.
helps regulate consistency. Over there, it's up to the retail chain to either add that discount or add that premium. So every retail chain is going to be different because they have their own different set of standards.
Okay, you must have read my mind because that was my next question. Like, we have the USDA here, if they had any sort of governing body, but that's crazy that it's the grocery stores that kind of control that.
Yeah. And what's wild too is that, and I get this a lot, and I'm harping on this a little bit because it's been a more common comment that I've been getting in my social media posts as of late is talking about, oh, well, quality this, and Europe has such better beef and traceability. I beg to differ. I went to a certain retail chain, and I won't say what country or what brand it was, but they were bragging about incorporating plant material into their ground beef and not telling consumers. This
Interesting.
whole living by don't ask, don't tell doesn't fly here in the United States. And so when as a consumer, I can go to any retail chain, Walmart, HEB, Publix, Kroger, Market Street, whatever retail chain you have near you, and I can have confidence in the consistency of that product. I can't, and that if it says ground beef 80/20 or 75/15, I know that that is going to be what is in that package. I can't say the same in Europe.
Were a lot of the farmers over there really annoyed by this and that there's really no consistency? Like, is there a lot of frustration on their end?
Yeah, I think it depends on what country you were in. In Southern Ireland, they didn't see a problem with the EU. They are like, you know what? We have to, in order to get paid, because they have subsidies over there, just like in the United States, in order to get paid, you have to check all these boxes. So why wouldn't I? In Northern Ireland, I saw a little more pushback, and that's probably because they fall under the UK versus the EU. A little bit of pushback in the UK itself, in both countries, Scotland and England. Um, Again, the same level of we need to start incorporating what the US is doing, not just on a food scale, but on a political scale as well, which we won't get into today. But it was really interesting hearing the amount of praise that our current administration has been getting from especially those in England. And then and you're in the Netherlands, it's a little bit of both. Most people did not see a problem. They thought that what they were doing was cutting edge. The Netherlands is very known for being high tech. Mainly because they have to be, because of the amount of regulations that the EU puts in place. So, survive or die is really the type of environment that I experienced. But especially in Northern Ireland and in England, as soon as the mics cut off, it was very concerning. Your heart goes out for these producers because their hands are tied. And I even talked to one of the leaders of the World Animal Health Organizations at a conference, and I asked him, hey, all of this conversation about sustainability and especially climate change, the European Union's very focused on climate change. What is your opinion? And he looked me straight in the eyes and he's like, if Europe doesn't change, they're going to put themselves, they're going to policy themselves into a corner where they will not be able to produce any food for their own country, much less export, and they're going to have to start importing. The United States needs to stay away from doing anything that the European Union is doing in terms of the strict regulation that's happening over there. And I went to a summit, and one of the representatives from Germany went up there at an animal summit, an agriculture summit, went up there and said, in order to fight climate change, we need to eliminate the options that consumers have for meat-based protein and push the plant-based protein on consumers. And the only way to do that is to either A, eliminate their options, or B, utilize social media and create a new eating trend.
Wow.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. And it's not just me that had it on record. The summit itself has these things recorded and posted online for 9 or 60 days after the event. That is terrifying to see and to hear. And my thought process is, okay, if you're looking at a climate change initiative, Germany's not going to make a drop in the bucket compared to what the pollution and climate lack of care that we see in China, and especially in India and those other countries that have a massive population and a massive output of pollution. So this whole climate change initiative, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I know another thing that's been impacting Irish farmers for years is that the government, to impact climate change, they want to cull a ton of cows to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. When in total, all of Ireland is less than 1% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. And so,
Yeah.
like, of course, these farmers care about the environment, but then you see stuff like that where it's not going to have any impact at all. And then you're going to have Irish consumers are going to have less domestic products because the government is forcing farmers to do less, which is crazy.
Yeah, and that's 100% correct. So I went to actually one of the government research stations in Northern Ireland that's mandated by the government, and one of the projects they had going on was this essentially a version of green feed, which the idea is you have a chemical compound that an animal ingests. It's usually seaweed based. And the idea is when that animal, especially beef animal, eats that product, it reduces the amount of methane that gets emitted into the atmosphere. The lofty goal was 30% reduction. They're not even meeting 5.
Oof.
One of the questions I asked, and one of the managers there said, okay, so what if it doesn't look like it's working? What if it continues down this route? And he goes, well, if we are short, let's just say 25%, the only option that they're going to have is to reduce cattle inventory numbers by 25%, exactly to your point. And a lot of this I thought was fear mongering and clickbait, and I thought this was maybe filtered out information because they, over in Europe, same process with the media, a lot of information they get is skewed and is not accurate. And so I had just had this assumption that everything I had heard of is inaccurate. So let me hear it from producers and people of high decision making's mouth, right? A lot of the things that we get told here in the United States about the European Union in regards to agriculture, unfortunately, is true. And I asked multiple different people, and it 100%, to your point, on the reduction of animal inventory. And the way they're going to do that is through taxation. They're already trying to do a methane tax in Denmark. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to go up there, but in Denmark, they're already trying to implement it. They're talking about implementing it into the rest of the European Union. Already, we've been seeing the Deforestation Act. It's the EU, oh gosh, it's like EUDP or EUPD, something like that. Anything that is related to a potential of deforestation will not be allowed to be bought, sold, or exchanged. And that includes wood, cattle, corn, and a bunch of other products. And so for a country or a country group that is so adamant about the reduction of climate change impact and more sustainability, they use a crap ton of plastic and they use a crap ton of single-use type of plastic just at the retail chain. And now you're putting in legislation in place that eliminates your naturally made products made by Mother Earth, put by God himself. Now that's been postponed 5 times, as you can well imagine. But it's still a conversation that's happening consistently. And actually, Phil Hogan, the former European Trade Commissioner, went up, and he's a fiery individual, keynote speaker on day 1. And he said, if you as a farmer have made zero effort into assisting with climate change and helping positively affect climate change, then I have zero sympathy for you when we tax you out of business.
Oh, yeah, that's a terrible take. Jesus.
Word for word. And so a lot of this is like, okay, like we have, similar to the United States, we've got people on one side, we've got people on the other side, and then there's this in the middle. So my job as a reporter, my job as a person who is advocating for agriculture on a global scale and educating people on a global scale is I will, as little of my opinion as possible, relay that information to you, allow you to make that decision, but also share both sides of the story. So it was really interesting where we had Phil Hogan go in there, very fiery, very anti-Trump, very anti-US trade, very interesting individual. And then the very next day, the World Animal Health Organization saying, don't agree. Two opposite sides of the spectrum. So just because the European Union is voting in a certain direction and making certain decisions does not accurately reflect every producer in these countries, I will say that should be a wake-up call to America that we need to ensure that we have people who understand agriculture in places of power to make agricultural voting decisions. Thank gosh we don't have Tom Vilsack anymore. Brooke Rollins is, now on the front lines dealing with a mess when it comes to beef prices, beef supply, and then now the New World Screwworm. But we need to have more people in advocating for agriculture on a political scale, because if we're not careful, we will end exactly in the same position as Europe.
I promise we'll talk about American agriculture in just a little bit, but my last question on this, do you think, like, are any of the foreign meat packers, like from Brazil or China, are they involved in any way in the EU in all this climate change stuff?
So I'm not 100%. So I was actually supposed to go to an abattoir, which is their French origin word of meat packer. Unfortunately, that did not get to happen. It was just a scheduling issue. So unfortunately, I didn't get to have that type of conversation. So I don't have much of an opinion in that ballpark. I will say that they do have some foreign-owned entities, but being EU regulated, it's a different animal. It's just like the USDA. It's a different animal. There's a reason why we don't import beef from certain countries. There's a reason why we have screening of any kind of imported meat product, is to ensure the consistency and safety. Because again, without a doubt, the United States has the most sustainable, consistent, and safe meat product in the entire world. As someone who has traveled to a lot of first world countries across the world, I would put our meat up against anybody else's. But hopefully when I get to go back to Europe, that's actually going to be a conversation. I did talk to a couple of local butchers, but obviously a local butcher does not meet the same supply as you see at the retail.
Okay, let's move on to American Ag. So
Sure.
you're with Double E Ranch. You're a reporter. You do speaking engagements, all that stuff. Like, what's your background? How did you get started? And how'd you get started in all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to think of myself as an example. If you're not born into agriculture and you want to be in it, you can do it. So did not grow up in agriculture. Mom was military, dad was finance, and I just fell in love with it. I have FOMO on a consistent basis, and one of which was stock showing. Everybody around me was doing stock shows, and I just was like, that sounds cool. That sounds fun. I like animals. I want to be a veterinarian. No, I didn't actually want to be a veterinarian, but I thought in my delusional brain in middle school that I wanted to. So I just got involved with 4-H. Been doing that for a while, and just it started to get more involved in the animal side. Did livestock judging, the whole 9 yards. Loved it. Was a part of the animal or the livestock ambassador program through Texas 4-H. Texas is incredible with their 4-H program. I did not realize how lucky I was until I started traveling to other states. But that was actually my first taste of advocacy. They had us set up a booth at a grocery store and talk to people about their food, and go to fairs, go to the major stock shows, talk to people about where their food actually comes from, because it's not in the back of HEB or whatever grocery store you shop at. It comes from somewhere and it changes hands. And so for me, I was like, oh, this was a lot of fun, but I thought that was just a chapter of life. Went to A&M, got an animal science degree. I knew I liked sheep, cattle, and horses. I got as much experience in those 3 areas as I could. And then traveled abroad to Australia, and that was my first experience with international agriculture, with the study abroad. And I was like, you know what? I'm not married. I'm not dating anybody. I don't have any kids. Might as well go ahead and, go to Australia and work out here for a couple of years. Like, I don't have a family ranch to go back to. And so as soon as I made that decision, went out there a couple more times, and then that's when COVID hit. So rerouted my trajectory more stateside. And what's unique about my work past and work history is I got an experience in each different segment of the industry with beef cattle. Started with nutrition, was there, learned about Virginia agriculture, Virginia forage quality, nutrition, multi-species over there. Got offered a job with Zoetis, working with feed yards on data management. So came back to Texas, worked with smaller to mid-sized grow yards, feed yards in Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. Was there until the closure of that division, and then managed a ranch for a little while. One of my former customers got some ranch management experience, cow calf operation. Learned a lot about on the management side, dealing with day hands and cowboys. And then took a job, had a much better paycheck and, health insurance.
There you go.
Yeah, with an IVF company, and I covered 5 states with them until they got into a financial, spot that they went ahead and cut off some limbs in their own organization. And so, for me at that point, I had seen and had experience with all different kinds of producers, from low end, high end, massive, small, specialized, commercial. And I had started when I was with Zoetis, starting to post some of this topics of fear mongering and addressing some of the lies that consumers get told on the internet. And I said, you know what? I feel like this is where God's calling me to go ahead and start focusing my efforts there. And so I did. That's when Double E Ranch Advocacy became a full-time gig. That was November of last year. And through that, I have been contacted by Texas A&M, Dr. Jeff Goodwin, with the Center for, I just got corrected yesterday, Center for Grazing Lands, Ranch Management and Grazing Lands. And so they had a program with the USDA grant that does exactly what I'm doing, but with a paycheck. And yeah, right? Oh, those bills, man, they sneak up on you. But exactly what I'm doing, but focusing more on grazing lands and ranch management. And so what we're doing is sharing producer stories, 25-minute long type of episodes across 8 different states, and partnered with the USDA NRCS office. So that gets me more education, more resources, and a lot more practice of interviewing what to look for in different states. And then throughout all of that, I also got contacted by our local news station here in Lubbock, Texas, and they asked me if I would be willing to be the ag reporter. And so I've been growing my media experience, not only through Double E Ranch Advocacy, but also the show, YouTube series called Ranch Worthy with the center. And then now with KLBK and KMAC, and I get to share people's stories. I get to learn. I went to a pickle shed, Best Made Pickles, 45 minutes up the road. Yeah, 45 minutes up the road. That's where the majority of those cucumbers are grown. Had no idea. Yeah, so I get to see all these different types of operations, really cool stories that you probably don't even think of when you're at the grocery store. You're just saying, oh, dang, I need hamburgers. I need pickles. Let's go pick up some pickles. And so my job is to help bridge the gap between urban and rural communities on a global scale. So
that's so cool.
There we are. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
No, it sounds like it. Yeah, I've been following you for a while, and I think it's so neat that first off, you've got the advocacy, but also you've got the opportunity to be an ag reporter, to do it kind of in a formal way, I think, which is really cool. Like, how are you balancing all that? Like, doing those episodes, doing the advocacy, doing the reporter? I'm sure it's easier said than done.
Yeah, if anybody wants an unpaid internship, we're hiring. Yeah, and that's been the difficult part, right? Because I've got 3 full-time jobs going on. Everyone knows the order of priority. I had the European trip already planned out almost a year in advance. And everyone, I said, hey, like, I'm gonna be gone for 3.5 weeks. I know that's a long time to take off a full-time job. If you're not okay with that, that's fine, but that's a non-negotiable. And we just work out, an agreement, like, okay, well, I'll work weekends up until this point, or hey, I would love to do that live shot, but I've got a filming with Ranch Worthy in order to meet deadlines. I've got to hit that and get that done next week. So you're either going to find somebody else, or maybe we could do it sooner. So it's really trying to balance the schedule. Thankfully or unthankfully, I'm not quite sure how to feel about this, Um, my schedule's been chaotic since I was young. Worked 2, 3 different jobs during college. Was on the horse judging team. Was a national vice president. Took 22 hours or 21 credit hours at one point. I don't recommend that.
That's a
So
lot for, geez, for one semester. Jeez.
yeah, yeah. And I was working like it wasn't like a on campus job. I was working for a cutting horse trainer. I was working at the sheep center. I had my photography business. So that's kind of where Double E first came from was it was Emil Kaufman Photography. And I was like, oh, I'll rebrand and I'll do more agriculture stuff because that's what I love to do. And if people buy it, great. If not, I get to do cool stuff and see cool things. So that's originally where the name Double E came from. It was supposed to be
Okay.
Double E Ranch Imaging, and very quickly I came across a vegan teacher, and I couldn't just let it fly, and it turned into Double E Ranch Advocacy. So, um, yeah, if you look at my TikTok page, at the very first 2 or 3 um, clips or TikToks was actually advertising for my photography company. So it's wild to think how much has changed just in a few years.
No, that's awesome. I've learned that because I've got like I had a day job and I had the podcast and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's so cool because some people really thrive with chaos. Like they'll have like 2 or 3 jobs, all this stuff. Like it really just kind of depends on your personality.
Yeah, and I'm a unmedicated ADHDer, and so for me, it's actually really almost therapeutic being able to shift gears because when I was working in corporate, I was miserable. I couldn't take care of business the way I felt that we should be taking care of our producers. There was quotas to be met. There was products to be pushed. Even if I didn't feel that that was what a producer needed, a lot of times it was, well, get over it, like sell it. And I don't agree with that. The other part, it got very mundane very fast. The same thing over and over, over and over. And if you perform well, you got punished by having your quotas doubled or tripled for the next year. And so for me, this has allowed doing Double E is obviously my own company. My success and failure is based off of my productivity, which has really helped me keep myself more accountable. But with the TV station and also with the A&M show, same thing. I'm the one scheduling. I'm the one conducting the interviews with the TV station. I'm the one putting together the packages, writing up articles. I've learned a lot and I've grown just in the last few months. I have grown so much as an interviewer, as a person who advocates for agriculture in my knowledge base, even obviously a relationship type of outlook of it as well. But really, those other companies are allowing me to still treat it as if it was my own business. Now, yes, there's extra steps we have to take, like thank you, government, for not letting us use DJI products. By the way, any off-brand drone absolutely stinks. Like,
I
we have
forgot
to,
about that. That's true.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, we have to jump through hoops. Things like that. Or a TV station, hey, like you need to do a 10 o'clock anchor, like live anchoring. We have this, we're shorthanded, we need your help. So there's obviously some extra, bolts thrown in there, but I'm very thankful that I've had this opportunity and that people believe in me enough to have me on board, really. That says a lot for them trusting me. Um, but it just shows you that, like, if you're not comfortable where you're at, I am a firm believer that God will make you uncomfortable until you are in a position that He has intended for you. And I was miserable with corporate. Every single job started off great the first, 5, 6, 7 months. And some of them didn't even make it that long. My last corporate job, 3 months in, I'm like, this is an absolute shit show. Like, this is not what I thought I was signing up for. And you know, my parents always told me this, and I didn't realize how applicable it was to not just people, but also business. You can always learn one of two things. You can either learn how to be or how not to be. And I mess up all the time. I am not a business minded, like crunching numbers on a spreadsheet, not my forte. Like if it has 4 feet and goes nay, ba, or moo, that is my forte. But we're having conversations like this. But, you know, you can always learn how to improve, and you will learn more from your mistakes. If any young person's listening to this, you will learn more from your mistakes than you will your successes. And I will say this right now, the only thing I've ever regretted is not asking questions, is taking the leap and taking the chance. Screw what people think about you. The people who judge you from the outside are not the people who will probably you'd be willing to switch places with or aspire to be anyways. And some family members, my parents have absolutely zero concept of what I do and the impact that I make in the industry. They try to understand, but they just don't get it, right? And my parents are fantastic people. Like, shout out mom and dad, because this is probably not where they thought my life was going to end up. But they've been supportive of me of every single step of the way. But colleagues, former classmates, extended family members, neighbors, it doesn't matter what people think of you as long as you are being ethical in what you're doing, and chasing a dream. And if it's to be an expert underwater basket weaver blindfolded, then do your thing. I will say that financially, I am probably the brokest I've ever been since starting my career, but I'm by far the happiest. And I would never trade my 6-figure corporate job. I would never trade spots to be back there again.
All right, I'm ready to run through a wall now after that little pep talk. That was
Please.
great.
Yeah, sorry, that was probably a lot longer than we expected.
No, that's perfect. And honestly, I mean, and to be honest, like I had a corporate job a few weeks ago, and then I got laid off. And
Yeah.
I just think like you were saying, I think God's timing is impeccable because
Yeah.
of that. Like my wife and I, we just had a kid. Because of that, I've been able to spend more time with him.
Congratulations.
I had 2 friends that lost their mom, so I had time to go to their funerals. I got to go get lunch with my grandpa. I've been able to do so much stuff and then spend more time with farm traveler stuff. So it's all about, I don't know, you've got to look at it in a very different light. Like, not just kind of
Yeah.
trust the big guy upstairs and that he's, trying
Perspective.
to help you figure things out.
Yeah, perspective for sure. God will answer careful when you pray this and how you pray this, but I've done this in relationships, friendships, and businesses. God, if this is not for me and it just does not benefit you and your kingdom, then remove it from me.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy enough, the next day, 45% of the company gets laid off, or, the entire company is like, oh, by the way, we sold and all of you don't have a job. Thanks for your efforts. So, yeah. And then, looking back, you probably, have already had this experience that hindsight's 2020. You don't see the issues when they're right in front of your face. It's when you back up.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, perspective is an amazing thing. But yeah, okay, I want to talk about the speaking thing because
Sure.
I've been podcasting for 4 years now, I think, and I'm trying to get in the
Very
speaking
cool.
world. I
Yeah.
had one almost scheduled. I think it was in Texas. No, no, no,
Okay.
no. It was in Oregon. It was in Portland, Oregon, and it would have been the coolest thing ever. It was it was a hops growers convention, and they're like, "Hey, you want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, sure," but I never heard back from them, so I'm like, "Dang it."
Mm,
So, how did you get involved with speaking, and then what's your main message whenever you go give a speak, or when you go give a
Yeah.
talk?
Sure. Yeah. So, it depends on the situation. So a lot of stuff I did before, well, gosh, really backing up in 4-H, I was a part of public speaking. So I learned the fundamentals of public speaking, did it competitively, through 4-H. So a lot of my skill sets I have to credit 4-H for. So if you have children, get them involved. I promise you, they will build friendship, community. There's a lot of scholarship opportunity, and then also like lifelong skills. This being an example of it. So for me, when I am going into the public speaking route, like I always wanted to go into that direction. I just didn't know how that was going to work. And I didn't feel like imposter syndrome. Felt like I wasn't knowledgeable enough, skilled enough, experienced enough. I'm not even 30 years old. Like, why would a bunch of 50-year-old, 60-year-old ranchers, producers care about what I have to say? My first paid speaking gig was because a colleague of mine had surgery, and he's like, "Hey, I can't go. Would you want to do this?" I said, "Absolutely." It was not my best performance. So The topic was to be like a motivational speaker of like why you should be proud to be in agriculture. And this was when the economy was not doing well. Cattle prices were not going well. The drought was in place. We had a lot of biosecurity issues going on. Like if you were a producer, I was just like, how do I phrase this? I'm not conveying education. I'm conveying emotion. Like how do I
Hmm.
convey positive emotion when it feels like everything's stacked against you? And so in the middle of my talk, I was just getting met with blank faces. And in that moment, I panicked. I was like, God, help, help. And he just laid it on my heart to talk about Job and
Hmm.
compare what's going on in agriculture at the time in Texas to Job. And that even though everything might seem dark, everything might seem like it's not going your way, and everything that you think you're taking a step forward, but then you look up and you feel like you've taken 10 steps back. So I use that comparison that even despite all that, Job still kept his faith in God, and we still need to keep our faith in our Lord, but also in agriculture. That what we're doing is right. That what we're doing is with purpose, and no matter what's going on, like keep that motivation of just one more day. And so I use that, and that was met with very mixed type of response from the crowd. Um, but I realized that I had a lot of education to go. I needed a lot more practice and probably not paid practice. So I talked at 4-H groups. I talked for free at different type of producer events. And so when I am talking, it depends on what kind of audience I'm talking to. I talk to colleges all the time. And so now I have to charge because I'm like, hey, like my time and traveling, like I got a diesel pickup, like I got to pay my fuel at some point. Um, so now it really depends on who's asking me. So I got the Beef Checkoff asked me to do a 2-day presentation about advocacy. I'm like, okay, well, this is my job, so that I should be able to talk about that. But how do I tell producers who may not even have Facebook why they should have a conversation with somebody who has different colored hair and has a vegan t-shirt on at the grocery store, you know? So it depends on what audience you're talking to. For me, it's really, I stopped worrying about what I think people want to hear, and I start thinking about if I was in your shoes, whatever situation, or 5 years ago, what do I need to hear? And especially with college students, they're probably my favorite. They're the least paid type of speaking gig, but I remember hearing like, oh, you got to get a corporate job. Oh, you got to have to work for a company. Oh, you have to do all these things. They don't teach you how to run a business. They don't teach you that following your passion can actually work out. They're like, oh, that can be a side hobby. And so they focus a lot on academia, which is obviously important. But I went to A&M and they asked me to come speak back, and I haven't been asked again since then. But I told the students, do not let education get, or don't get schooling get in the way of your education. I learned way more working 4 different jobs than what I did in the classroom. The classroom laid the foundation of
Hmm.
my knowledge base. The experience built the house. And I think that's really, really important for especially young folks to remember that, yes, for me, the agriculture degree, the animal science degree, I needed that because I didn't have any family ranch. I didn't have any family heritage. I didn't have some grandpa telling me that's just how it's done. So for me, I had the added benefit of coming in with fresh eyes.
Hmm.
And no matter what your background is, no matter where you came from and where you want to go, you don't look at what most people would seem as a deficit to your character or to your knowledge. Look at it as a advantage. I used to look at me not coming from agriculture as a blemish. Like I used to try to, not lying, but trying to pretend like, yep, I'm like, I've been in the industry, and give that facade of, hey, like, no, like I've been here, like I know what I'm talking about, which I did to a certain extent. But I used to think that was a disadvantage. And looking back, that is my biggest advantage because I was on a panel and the moderator asked like, Emma, you don't run any cattle on your own. You run other people's cattle and all this other stuff. So like, why should we care about what you say when this is not your livelihood? I'm like, well, it actually kind of is my livelihood because I'm advocating for an entire industry. But really, out of all the ranchers up here, you should probably listen to what I say the most because I'm not trying to sell you a product.
Mm.
I'm not trying to sell you a program. Chose the worst business model. Shark Tank would never invest in me because I chose the worst business model of spending my money and my time traveling, learning, and digesting that information and giving it to people for free. And people have wanted me to try to charge that type of information out online. And I refuse to do it because I remember as a consumer not knowing the fundamentals and the basics of animal agriculture and being pissed when I got to college. Like, why aren't we talking about this? Why as a consumer do I not know? And so that's where the motto, Bridging the Gap, came from. So when you're talking, you're supposed to be bridging a gap of something. Whether it is a political look, whether it's a education outlook, whether it is a information of like for foreign, whatever it is. If you're going to a Lego convention and there's this new color of Lego or new, I don't know, makeup of a Lego that allows it to hurt your foot even harder when you step on it at midnight, then that's the information. That's the information that you're trying to gap. So when you're speaking, same concept. And it just takes a lot of practice. I am still nowhere near where I'd like to be. But hopefully one day I'll be able to do that more full time because I really, really do enjoy talking to people and not at
I
people
feel
on screen.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like it's kind of like stand-up comedy where you've got to get your reps in, you're going to crash and burn a couple of times, but then you're going to really get your message, and once you
Yeah.
hone it, you'll be hitting home runs. You know, you'll get your Netflix show and everything, and then, everybody will be wanting your talks.
And don't be afraid to say you don't know. Like I had a guy
Yeah.
at a grazing summit ask me a question. And he's like, "Well, what is X, Y, and Z?" I was like, "Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I probably would need to look into that." But in reality, it's a really good question and something that I'm just not educated on right now. Like, be honest, because as soon as you try to A, be somebody that you're not,
Mm.
or B, you try to pretend to know something that you don't, people see through that like a window pane. I mean, they will see right through you and you will not last long.
Yeah, the three words that everybody's terrified to say, but it's okay. Like you come out looking better if you say it, and they are, "I don't know." Like it's
Yeah.
okay to say that. You are not expected to be the expert on everything.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of pressure, especially with social media, for you to be the
Hmm.
expert in everything. And there's a lot of times that I'm like, oh, you know what? Nope, I'm wrong. I was wrong on that. And being humble enough to admit when you are wrong is really important. Again, that goes back to your character. No matter what company you work for, if you are in the corporate field, fine, but don't sacrifice your character for a sale. And I say that because I was in sales, and there's times that I was wrong. I thought I knew the answer for a producer, especially producers. They want an answer from you right then and there. When you're new, you're not going to know the answers. And I remember a couple of times in different fields that I was like, oh yeah, like I think we can do that. And then engineering was like, no, 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 we can't. I was like, okay, my bad. And so I called them and said, hey, that was my fault. I'm new. I'm learning. Apparently we can't do that. But because we can't do that, here's a solution or here's a different option for you if you're comfortable with it. And so it's just don't give into that pressure, like you said, of being an expert on everything because I'd much rather someone tell me, you know what, I really don't know and stick to that
Hmm.
versus someone who feeds me a bunch of crap and then later find out that they're full of crap. Like you will lose people's trust. And in any industry, it is, I tell students this all the time. The what you know is just the icing. The who you know is the cake. And you've got to make sure that you maintain that cake because you can either have a 15 tiered cake or you can have a little cupcake. Like it is up to you, or a little brownie. It is up to you how you paint yourself out, but the world gets small fast.
Going along the lines of like content creation, I can't remember who it was like some big content creator, but they said your audience doesn't expect you to know everything. They expect you to be just 10% ahead. Like that's it. You're not supposed to be an expert. You just need to be a
Yeah.
little bit ahead of the audience and kind of guiding them to the answer that you're trying to learn. And I can't, I'll try to figure out who I learned that from, but I thought that was such a really good perspective because it's like, it takes so much pressure off of you. Like, I don't have to know everything about beef. I don't have to know everything about ranching, but I have to be the one trying to find the answers and taking my audience along with.
Yeah, like if you're doing any kind of content creation, like what's the why? Like why, not your why, but what is the why? Would anybody listen to you? What are you offering? What kind of information is this? Educational? Is this entertainment? Like what is it that you're trying to get people to listen and take away from your content? And don't be afraid to shift and change. I'm still figuring it out, and you're gonna go through waves of dry spells that I thought, hey, that was a really great video, and then it's like, ah, well, apparently the algorithm didn't think so, and someone like threw it together last minute
Yep.
gets millions of views, and you're just like, okay, not what I thought. So it's definitely not an area. The content creation field, I'm still figuring it out. What I'm doing is it's probably not, again, business wise, probably not the most strategic thing in the world, but I'm just following my passion, and I am just trying to help educate people, whether you like it or not. Like, if you like the content and you agree with it, great. If you are some European that you're like, nope, I still like our beef better, I think that we're better than the United States, okay, well, that's your own prerogative. But the facts are facts. Facts, as Ben Shapiro said, doesn't care about your feelings. It's AI is not a credible resource. And so the part of your job, no matter what industry you're representing, do the research. And it's not fun. I read quite literally thousands of pages of bills just to try to understand some of the conversations and material I put online before I talk about it. And it's easy to just copy paste, run it through AI and be like, oh, give me a synopsis. But a lot of times it's not accurate. I've compared just to see, hey, can I make my job a little easier? You can on some stuff, but there's a reason ChatGPT says, hey, this is really important information, and you need to do your own independent research outside of ChatGPT, because even ChatGPT knows it's wrong.
Yeah, I like to share this story a lot. I've seen this story about ChatGPT and even like Google Gemini where they hallucinate, where they get the information wrong. And I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like a few months ago, somebody asked one, I think it was Google Gemini. They're like, hey, how many rocks a day should I be eating? And it totally hallucinated and was like, one rock a day is perfect for a really good diet. And it just like went with it. And obviously that's not correct. Like nobody needs to eat rocks, but again, that's AI taking random bits of information out there, putting it all together and coming out with something that's totally incorrect. That some
Yeah.
people, hopefully not with the rock thing, but some people will think, okay, this is true.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. A lot of the comments, a lot of the haters I get online, I cannot tell you the amount of screenshots. Now that TikTok has allowed you to put photos in the comments, I really wish they hadn't done that, but I digress. Anyway, just yesterday, someone's like, actually, that's not true. And I'm like, my resource is not AI. It was a Google AI. And he's like, yeah, so the resource is you. And I'm like, well, it's not AI. It's all these documents. And then I was like, you can go to this website, this website, this website. And again, a lot of the fundamentals of arguments comes from basic animal science. So for
Mm,
me, my degree was extremely beneficial, and I didn't hate school because I loved what I was learning. I think there's a lot of pressure on students to get into a four-year university and get a degree, and a lot of times it's not stuff that actually is helpful or beneficial to them and what they want to do. So I don't care if it's a trade school, if it is a 4 year or no school, whatever you're spending your money and time on, like everything comes as a cost. Sometimes it's a time cost, sometimes it's a monetary cost, sometimes it's both. You just got to make sure what you're spending your time on and your money on is actually something that's going to be beneficial to where you want to be in life. And I get a lot of haters. Unfortunately, a lot of it is people that are in the industry. So there's a lot of internal conflict, but I get a lot. Oh, when I was on the vegan hit list, a lot of the arguments that I saw from them was basic animal science, just 101. You can get it free online at multiple different extension agencies' websites. Like, it's very basic stuff. But I think that's where producers get really, and especially in agriculture, we get frustrated as we have these basic level conversations, and it's exhausting, especially when you're trying to combat emotion with logic. That's not an easy task. And so I try to help take the blunt of that blow as much as I can. But even I get irritated. There's times where I don't look at comment sections anymore. There's times where I turn the notifications off because just this is mental health wise, when you're being told consistently every 10 seconds by people, user number 4982675 says that you are, put all the explicits in one sentence online, and it's a lot. It's a lot. If you're going to be advocating or doing any kind of content creation, you're going to have haters. It's going to happen. I don't care if you're posting like cute puppy pictures. There's going to be someone that's like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have a dog, 'cause that's so abusive to their mental health being in an air-conditioned environment. Like, you're going to have that. So just be aware. I think I was a little naive getting into the industry, but then also naive as a female, and then also naive getting into content creation. Like I said, I've learned a lot. And one of the things I've learned is how to have tough skin. Like, do not take it personally. Let it roll off your back. Most of these keyboard warriors are very aggressive, but that's because they're not face to face. And I've actually met a hater face to face, and completely different interaction than online. I was like, hey, like, it was nice to meet you. Like, yeah, I follow your content and I think you're a piece of blank. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you feel that way? Well, because you talk about X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, well, in your opinion, and this kind of helped from sales experience, but I was like, okay, but in your opinion, like, how do you feel about this? Or describe to me what this word means to you. Like, what does sustainable mean to you? And then they talk about it, and a lot of the conversations, it looks like Swiss cheese at the end of it because there's so many holes in the story. So, you probably won't meet most haters face to face, but a lot of it's just in ignorance. And there's two different types of questions. There's a question on wanting to actually learn, and then there's a question just phrased to try to arm themselves for more argument. So you just got to pick your battles too.
Yeah, I don't know another industry where the people have to fight so much trolls and negative comments and stuff. And that's such a good point. Like, a lot of the comments, they're not setting you up for a debate. They're setting you up to
Yeah.
defend yourself. And because
Yes.
they're like, oh, well, meat is murder. And you're like, no, it's not. Meanwhile, they're probably eating a burger from McDonald's, like doing the same thing, like eating meat. And they're just, and I've also wondered, I want to do some more research on this, but like, how many of those comments are bots where they're like farming engagement and trying to drive all that traffic, which I've always wondered about. But yeah, people in ag, you keep fighting the good fight. I know people like you, people like Derek Josie's do the same thing. I mean, yeah, y'all take just so much brunt of like misinformation and consumer frustration that I'm sure is really difficult to manage.
Well, and to your point, there are a lot of bots on the internet. Like right now, the amount of Middle Eastern bots that I'm getting. So I was
Mm.
palpating a cow, and that turned sexual very quick. Like that. And it's the amount of inappropriate comments and inappropriate messages, especially again being a female in the industry, that you get is overwhelming sometimes. You can set safety standards, like to the point that I got so much hate and so much. I hate to use the word bullying, but it really was like so much to the point that Instagram and TikTok both sent me a message saying, "Hey, we've noticed that there's not a lot of great things being said. You can turn on anti-bullying filters, and you can filter out certain words to help, eliminate from you even being able to see it." And I've actually utilized that filter. If you use explicits,
Nice.
yeah, if you use explicit language, then I don't even see it. And I do that on purpose because I'm not going to have a conversation with someone who is not wanting. It's like Charlie Kirk, right? Like, God rest his soul. People come up to the microphone. Some of them just wanted to learn and actually get his opinion and some insight. Some people just wanted to have an argument, shout explicits, and just try to elevate a conversation. And what I'm doing is like taking the microphone away from people who want to just say a bunch of mean and nasty things. So But with that being said, I mean, I still, even despite that, I cannot tell you the amount of times I've either gotten a message from somebody, email, or just even a conversation, and people thank me for taking the time to have those conversations and taking the blunt of or taking the blow for a lot of attacks that we get in the industry, or talking about certain subjects that most producers who represent a ranch don't want to talk about because they worry about how it's going to affect their business. A lot of people have their hands tied. And my advantage of right now still not running any cattle on my own property is because I get the freedom to travel, but then the other benefit of that is I get to address the elephant in the room. And so people are watching, and they will always see if you were doing things right or you were doing things wrong. People see it and people watch, and the people who talk the loudest are usually the ones who have nothing positive to contribute to a conversation. A lot of the silence that you maybe feel in the industry as a whole is actually they're supporting you. They're just not maybe leaving comments, and because they don't want the heat on their own accounts, and so which I get that, but I still wouldn't trade it. I mean, I get to hear some insights and opinions. Again, being not from agriculture, I know how to phrase some of these conversation topics in a way
Mhm.
that's easy to understand. Like, how can you talk about fetal programming with somebody who lives in a high rise? Like that's a very complicated subject. So how can I boil that down? And I do that with the episodes with Ranchworthy. I do that with the TV episodes. I get too excited with the TV station. They're like, "Hey, we know you're excited about this subject. Well, remember, the people around that are watching it are, education wise on agriculture, probably like fourth or fifth grade education level. Like, let's keep it,
Keep it
understandable."
at that level.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that helps, right? Because you can set the tone, and then you allow people to do have more of an elevated education to accelerate that conversation to a new level. And if someone who maybe doesn't understand ag at all and they need to maintain, they don't feel like they're out of their field, and they feel if you're using basic language, easy elementary school language, let the other person set the tone of how and where that conversation needs to go. So,
That's such a really delicate balance because, like, with my audience, for example, I'd say it's like 60% consumers, 40% farmers. And so that verbiage, you've got to be really careful. You don't want to talk over them, but you don't want
yeah.
to talk down at them. So you've really got to, again, you've got to kind of like be there in the middle and make sure that, you're explaining it as efficiently as possible. No word salads, which I am terrible at. I still do word salads all the time. But yeah, it's a struggle, but, it's fun.
Well, and I think that it intimidates maybe someone who has more of an elementary, what we would consider someone who's an expert in the field as an elementary level question. I want those questions because to me, that's saying that, hey, I'm reaching somebody new. So if you are a consumer and you don't understand what the difference between choice and prime is outside of a price label, ask the butcher. Like, they want you to ask questions. We want you to be curious about agriculture, and agriculture needs to be better about keeping that door open. I always say that in a world full of gatekeepers, be a gate getter, because without the consumer, we don't have a product to sell.
I like that. That's true. Yeah, we've got to inform them as efficiently as we can, and really, like, they're part of the conversation because without them, obviously, farmers and ranchers are screwed, and likewise, without farmers and ranchers, consumers are screwed. So it's like they are they deserve a seat at the table and they deserve a part in the conversation, which I think you and a lot of people are doing a phenomenal job of that on social media.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, and you're exactly right. Consumers, at the end of the day, they have the power to change the industry. If out of nowhere people stopped buying prime steaks and everybody was clearing out the select and choice, then we're going to lose. The Packers are going to say, "Hey, okay, well, all right, we got two options. We can export all this beef to countries that will pay a premium for, which is what we do with ultra prime, ultra prime cuts already, or we shift our purchasing that we actually give a more financial incentive for these lower marbled carcasses." Is that a direction I think that we should go in? Absolutely not. Is it a direction I think we ever will go in? Absolutely not. But just to use an example, if the consumer shut down That's what really kind of worries the beef industry right now with the comments that President Trump made. Now, President Trump also, he is always 5, 6, 7, 8 steps ahead of everybody. There's a whole plethora of reasons of why he made the comment about beef, and it's not just an easy answer type of thing. There was a whole backstory on why. But that freaked out the consumer. That freaked out the media outlets. I was in Europe and my Facebook was consistently being lit up with beef price stories.
It
And
was.
yeah, I was just like, can we just not? Can we just wait till I get back? Because this is I even got to our own station manager. I was like, "Hi, this article that you posted, could we not have done that?" And he's like, "Well, you're back, so I guess you get to address it." I'm like, "Yeah, thanks. Yeah, really love that for me." But
Appreciate that.
yeah, oh, love the vote of confidence that you have in me. Can I sleep first? But anyway, no, so that freaks the producer out because it's not the fact that we're importing beef. We import a lot of lean beef to help make up ground beef because ground beef is our number one consumed beef product out there. And we typically have fat cattle and those trimmings, instead of throwing them away, we could be using them. And because the food service industry no longer uses tallow to fry things in like we used to, they use cheaper products like seed oils. We import lean beef so that way we have a good quality product that we can still put on the shelves. Okay, now that we got a backstory, if the consumer stopped buying beef because they were scared that this beef is now a foreign product and they don't understand how our food processing industry works with the USDA, which most consumers do not, then that would completely drop demand. If the demand drops, then that impacts what the profit margin that retailers and the packers will make. The retailers and packers, specifically the packers, are not going to take a gamble where they have the potential to lose money. How they're going to address that is paying less for feeder cattle. So if feedlots can't sell the cattle high anymore to packers, then they're not going to buy the cattle as high. It's this whole chain reaction, it's the domino effect, and it all starts with the consumer. The reason beef prices are still high is we have a massive shortage of beef inventory numbers. That's not new information. But the other part that beef prices are high is consumers realize that beef is a extremely healthy product. It's extremely nutrient dense. It's, in my opinion, the best protein option on the planet. And it tastes good. People want to eat beef. So they keep buying it. And we're going into the holiday season on top of that. People need to realize that retailers are going into the holiday season. And I talked with HEB a couple days ago. They're like, we're not making a whole lot of money on beef right now because we're trying to keep costs as low as we can for consumers. And we'll compensate for that money, that shortage in everything else. So like produce, boxed items like your rices and any other packaged food products, sodas, anything else that you jellies, things that you use with condiments, things that you use with these protein options. We'll make that up elsewhere. And really, the number one concern they said that they got was from people asking questions about seafood. So even the consumers, despite what you hear online, they still understand we have a great beef product that tastes great. It's, again, consistency, quality, and safe food product. So the consumers, with all that being said, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but with all that being said, the consumers drive everything. If everybody stopped buying Little Debbie cakes tomorrow because of a ingredient change that they made to make their product cheaper to make and they can have a larger profit margin, then Little Debbie would either A, have to change, or they would go out of business. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So the fact that we still have a high demand for beef says a lot about our product.
So when it comes to, I mean, there's so much going on, like with Trump and the beef imports, foreign packers. There's so much ag news right now that's really kind of going like super, like kind of viral. What advice would you have for people outside of agriculture that are trying to get good, reliable sources on this information? Like, where would you kind of send them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Grocery store is a great place to start. I know it sounds probably opposite of what is trending on the internet. Anywhere that you buy meat should be inspected by the USDA. If it is not inspected by the USDA, run. Run. Now, there's been certain things on the internet like, oh, well, I went to, I don't know, Target and I got beef there and it had gone bad. Okay, well, that's either a packaging issue or it's a retailer inventory issue. It is not a beef quality issue. That packaged food item arrived exactly how it should be. Now, what the retailer does at that stage, I mean, I buy from Walmart down the street. I know the guys that supply Walmart. I have confidence in their product. I know how the Walmart chain works. I buy from HEB. Very rarely do I actually buy straight from producers. Texas Tech's here in Lubbock, and they've got their own meat processing retail storefront. I'll buy beef from them every once in a while, but I don't hardly remember a time that I bought except maybe on one hand, I can count the amount of times I bought beef directly from a producer. Now, with that being said, if you want to buy from a local producer or a producer that you saw online and you trust them and you've asked the questions, they've answered the questions, and you feel confident in that product, absolutely build that relationship. Build that network with that producer. I'm all for it. But just because it says it's locally grown and it is a family owned, like mom and pop shop, they've got 50 cows, does not mean that product is safe. And it does not mean that product should be. There's a lot of producers I would never buy beef from because I know them, I know their operation, and I know their processing facility because I've seen it with my own two eyes. Not a lot of people get that added benefit. But if someone truly, like R.A. Brown, that's a great example. I would have no problem buying from the Brown family. I would have zero problem because I know them. I know the precautions that they take. I know their reputation. And I know that the quality of animal that I'm get is well worth the price point. But if when you're looking at beef and you don't know where to start at your local grocery store. Talk to your butcher. And just be careful what you see online, especially if a organization or a family or a company is using fear to sell their product. Also run. There is a couple accounts that have a massive following on social media. I would never buy beef from them because they are part of the problem when it comes to misunderstanding and miseducating the consumer. You can't tell me grass-fed beef is a healthier beef option in omega-3 fatty acids when we're talking about nanograms of differences. Like 3 nanograms. If you're really concerned about omega-3, go eat freaking salmon. So
that's such a good point.
And that sounds aggressive, but if you are using fear mongering and half truths or partial truths to sell your own product, you are no better than a vegan activist or an animal rights activist.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, fear mongering is such a good marketing ploy, but it's such a terrible thing to the industry. So it's like, if you see that, absolutely run, do not buy their product.
And I think I think that's where a lot of content creators, especially people who are in the industry, have fallen flat, is they took the easy route. Doing the homework, doing the research, telling the truth is not easy. It's not easy. Most wealthy businessmen out there in the world, the predominant majority of them, are not honest people. Sorry. It's the same thing when it comes to a lot of content out there. Or if you're a content creator and your version of content creation is taking other people's videos and doing a reaction video and having your little commentary to it, I don't think that you're a content creator. I think you're a critic. You're like a food critic, but in content. And just because you give your opinion doesn't mean that it's fact. And so I think that's where it's really difficult when you look at agriculture education is staying away from the fear mongering. Shiloh Farms, Noah Young and his family, great people. I've met Noah. I know Noah really well. And he does a really great job of A, keeping positivity, B, he's a small homesteader, so people can relate to him on his production levels because it's not, a massive multi-generation, thousands of acres type of place. It's very achievable. It's relatable to people. But he does a great job. He's like, hey, here's the background of this. And he puts it in a fun, easy to understand deliverable. yelling at a phone screen saying that it's everybody else's fault, or saying, hey, with this whole importation of Argentinian beef, you should buy my product because now you don't know if your food product's safe. I just like, instead of saying like lizard, lizard, I'm like lie, 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 lie. No, stop. It's just, oh, it's so frustrating. And so it's a cancer. It really is. It's a cancer in the industry. And so but talking with emotion is a lot easier than doing the research. And I think that's why, kind of using the reference to Charlie Kirk again, that was so easy for him to diffuse certain conversations, is because he let the person paint the picture of themselves, of who they are and what their intentions was. And he just, talked about fact or accuracy, numbers, statistics, and they can't combat that. At first it's a very fiery, and that's the way comment sections are so hit or miss on whether I engage with them or not. Because again, what kind of question are you asking? Is it to actually learn, or is it to just try to poke holes in that you're going to take 2 days to respond again, and you're going to do all this little research and nitpick and take specific sentences out of certain studies and put it together to form your own like research, when really you're just taking different words and stitching it together. So, yeah, it's just be careful what you hear on the internet. Just because someone looks like me and has cows in the background doesn't mean they're an actual expert in the field. And so that's why I felt it was really important to have a free education portal on my website. So again, please go visit doubleeranchadvocacy.com. We have a resource hub that is free. It's from as nitty gritty detailed as policy to as broad as, okay, what is a meat grade? Like what is this? Across all agriculture. And then all of it's free. All of it is, I don't even repurpose it into my own platform. It is literally a hyperlink that brings you directly to that website, so you can find more information on their website. I get zero commission out of it. I'm just trying to spread education. Again, the worst business model in the world. And then I have an interactive map. So everywhere that we do an episode of Double E Ranch Advocacy and you're like, hey, I want to buy that product. Okay, so like Matrix Animal Health out of Ireland, Tim Montgomery, great family, great products, all this antibiotic free because they can't use antibiotics over there. Great product line. If you want to buy that product direct from that producer, you've got to know him, you've seen his operation, you know what he stands for, what products he offers. You're like, I want to do business with that guy. Hop over to our website, go to the interactive map, type it up in the search box, or look at whatever pin drop is near you if you want to buy local. And then it has that producer's or company's contact information that you can contact them directly. So say Matrix Animal Health, hey, I want to buy that product. Okay, great. He ships to the US. So here's his information. You click on that. You can pull their email directly off, or you can click on their website, takes them directly to their website, and you can conduct business. And now you have a more history and a better maybe context of who you're doing business with, because you got to hopefully learn more about them through our platforms.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I checked out your website. The advocacy stuff there is great. I think that's such a phenomenal resource, especially for free. That's such a huge win-win for consumers. They can go to your website, check on, see what's going on there. Yeah, so how often do you do the videos?
So you talked about scheduling earlier. So
Oh, yeah.
the original goal was to get a long form video up every other week. Honestly,
Okay.
between the traveling and everything's done by myself, so everything is edited. I mean, like, it probably shows I am not a great editor, so apologies. But so I'm hoping now to maybe get something up once a month. The original goal was to get it done every other week, but got to pay bills, and maybe I can get stuff enough backlogged where we can get back to every other week. But right now we're trying to get something done at least once a month. And so also we have a YouTube channel. I had to restart the YouTube channel because YouTube does not like you changing emails. So help us get our followers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so stupid because I'm thinking, oh, screw YouTube, like them and their awful, customer service. I just won't post on there. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't help anybody. Like, that's just, I'm just hurting myself. So, but yeah, we're on all social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I need to start putting more effort behind YouTube. But again, that's where our me, myself, and I workforce comes in. That we're just, sometimes it just doesn't get done. And the goal is to hopefully get Double E to the point where we can be a fully televised program. And we would love to have sponsors that would help make that happen. So we can hire people who love editing and who love videography. I just love learning and being outside and working with livestock, right? So hope that's kind of like the long-term goal, or the big picture behind Double E, is to get it to that point. But until then, we're just taking manageable, bite steps, and we would love the support. If there's any kind of type of operation you want to see, if there's any type of information, or whatever part of agriculture, it doesn't have to be livestock. We do have a comment box on our website as well, and it's also linked in my link tree on all of my social media. And please feel free to tell me, because that helps me give you what you want. Just to give some insight, so a little trailer, if you will. Some things we got coming up is we have a lavender farm that we have interviewed.
Cool.
We've interviewed a local bee company. They're like one of the largest in Texas, so Honeybee Company. We've also interviewed the pickle shed. So we have the pickles, the cucumber side of the pickles. And then trying to think, we have a winery here in Lubbock that I filmed. And now moving forward, we will have Europe. So we were talking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 different countries. We went to dairies, we went to sheep shearers, went to an orchid grower that's like only the second location in the entire world that they can grow these types of orchids.
Wow.
Went to a feedlot, went to Hatch Techs, which is they use lasers and DNA sampling to figure out what sex laying eggs are. So obviously we want females for layers. That was really interesting. Went to a Highland. Obviously, if I go to Scotland, I got to go see a Scottish Highlander. So
You gotta see a Highland cow. Oh yeah.
yeah, beetroot guy, a guy that has like 100-year-old orchard that uses miniature horses to go out and eat the apples that fall from the trees. We've got a lot of great stuff coming up. It's just honestly now it's me putting it all together, and I want to make sure we're putting out quality content. But that's just a little sample of what we got going on. We've got cotton harvest going on right now. And then I do go to different places across the country. So, I'll be at the NFR. So if anybody sees me at the NFR, talk to me. As being a spokesperson for agriculture, I do 2 things that's a little unique. One, everything I wear is I either thrifted, secondhand, or I made. B, everything I wear is majority natural fiber. So we're talking about like silk, cotton, wool, leather, mohair. For me, it's very important to showcase that your clothing, if it's a natural fiber, A, it's going to last a lot longer. B, it's going to be a lot more durable. And even though it's going to be probably a little more expensive, it's still a natural product that you will get a much better experience with than any kind of polyester or synthetic fabrics. In a world full of microplastics, like it actually shows wearing polyester is really bad for your long-term health. Just trying to help educate and advocate for the industry, even if it's a fashion statement. So yeah,
you're a little busy and you've got a lot of videos in the pipeline. That's super awesome. And I do some farm tour videos too over on YouTube, and they're a challenge because you've got your schedule to figure out. You've got the farmer's schedule to figure out. You've got their harvesting and processing schedule to figure out. You don't want to get in the way of what they're doing because they're, full active job site. So it's a struggle. And not to mention, there's a lot going on. So I feel your pain there.
Yeah, trying to, if anybody around the Lubbock area wants to get more videography experience, holler at me, because trying to film it all yourself is really difficult. What I try to do differently is the way I look at it is I almost took Guy Fieri's Diner, Diet, and Drives concept and mashed it up with Mike Rowe's old TV show Dirty Jobs. So I really try to do and be active with the producer, not just talking about it. Because if we're just going to talk about it, like I could just show you pictures and videos in a podcast studio. But
Yeah.
I try to really showcase A, how difficult this is. B, like, of course I want to get my hands dirty. Duh, that's why I'm here. So it's still trying to nail down some of the video standpoints of that. But, it's it's all, again, all God's timing. And I think if I had grown to the point where I want to be too quickly, I don't think I would. I think I'd make a lot of mistakes that a beginner makes, and not if you get thrown into an advanced situation. There's certain things that you just should already know. And me, I know livestock. This whole media thing, it's new to me. So, people ask me questions like you did, like, oh, like, how do you do this? And I'm like, we're still figuring that out ourselves. So, but I just sharing the story. I am a perfectionist, and I had to take the humble pie and admit that, you know what, starting is better than postponing. Because I had postponed double E advocacy for so long as I wanted it to be perfect, and I realized it's never going to be perfect out of the gate. I just needed to just take the step. And even when I'm working with a massive budget like I am with Ranchworthy and A&M and the NRCS, it's still not where I would like it to be. And you can either look at that as a disadvantage or look at it as an advantage. And I think that goes with any situation that you're in. So if you want to take that job, if you want to change career paths, if you want to start your own farm, if you want to take a leap that most people would call you crazy, and they're going to try to tell you everything that you should know and do beforehand, you're never going to get there if you don't take the first step.
Love that. Emma, you are a wealth of knowledge, and what you're doing is amazing in agriculture. Obviously, you're doing a lot, so you're doing a lot of good things. So kudos to you for doing all of that and for sharing the cool story of ag.
Well, Trevor, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on. It's great sharing my story, but it's really spokespeople like yourself that just reaching out, sending DMs, sending a message, and you never know. Like, the answer will always be no until you ask, right? So thank you for having me on and sharing our story, because we're proud of it, and we're proud to be a part of helping bridge that gap.
Well, I will link everything below in the description of this episode, like your website, social medias. Is there anywhere else people can go to follow you and see what you're doing?
Pretty much social media, website as well. And please feel free. The best way to get a hold of me is through our contact link on our website. You can DM my business pages. It's hit or miss whether or not I see those in a timely manner, but feel free to do either one, whatever works best for you. So we'll try to reach out, and if you are an operation and you've got a cool story that you want to share, we would love to do that for you. And if you're a consumer and you want to learn more about a particular part of the industry, we would love to try to help find that information. And also, if you're looking for a keynote speaker, holler, because we've learned a lot since the first go around talking about Job. So.
Hey, well, there you go. A lot of avenues that you can do to promote agriculture, and a lot of ways people can follow you. Well, Emma, thanks so much for being on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor.